Well, welcome to another video. It's been a long day in the dream. Always seems to be a long day in the dream. Time is one of those things that when you choose to live in time for a moment, it always seems to leave its impression. It's the cause and effect relationship of believing that something takes time to accomplish something else, rather than everything is instantaneous and all communication is happening at once, and there's nothing happening that isn't meant to be happening and nothing needing accomplishment. But it's very difficult to stay in the singular nature of the experience of divine self all day long, especially when you're still operating with one of these bodies. And I think it was even the great Ramana Maharshi who concurred with that, or I concurred with his version of affairs actually, and Krishnamurti I think as well, U.G. Krishnamurti, who said I think it was U.G. He said he doesn't try to stay in the singularity of the experience, because the experience is singular to itself, and allowing yourself to be simply within the framework of the dreaming, within the framework of the Maya, without needing to compensate for it in any way, spiritual or otherwise, allows you to just be yourself here, as above so below. And otherwise you're ending up giving power to your ego, which basically, you spiritualize your ego. And that tends to be part of the journey anyway, seeing the spiritualizing of the ego, because when you first begin a conscious transformative process, if you're using A Course in Miracles, you're taking your undisciplined mind and feeding it full of new concepts. Just because it's full of new concepts doesn't mean that it's not an undisciplined mind. It's just speaking a slightly different language. It actually takes, for the embodiment of those concepts and the principles that they contain that give them relevance, to be applied in order for them to become grounded within the psychology of the experiencer, and in order to make the choice for higher, more celestial options reasonable. And that takes a moment. That takes as many years as it takes to, you never complete the process. Whilst you find yourself still with the physical vessel, the process is never complete. Vigilance is still always required. I was told last week, or I was confirmed last week actually, something I've known for quite a long time, for many years, that my atonement is complete. And even I had a couple of moments actually many years ago, one with my teacher Ted, when he was teaching and I was sitting on the side of the room just listening. I was waiting to play the music for the meditation afterwards, just listening, and I heard Jesus speak to me clearly, and he said, "Dave, you're done." He always speaks to me just in little bits of words here and there. "Dave, you're done." And as soon as he said that, I heard it in my mind audibly, as if he was sitting right next to me on both sides. But as soon as he said that, my teacher Ted stopped his discourse and looked over at me directly and said, "Dave, you're done." And I said to him, "Oh, I just heard that from Jesus." And we sort of smiled at each other and had a moment, and then he kept going with what he was doing. But and then later on down the track, some years after that, I cannot remember for the life of me what the prompt for it was, but Jesus spoke to me again and said, "I will now support you in whatever you do on behalf of the atonement." And then last week I was confirmed that my atonement is complete. And that's been 27 years, which lines up with one of my very, very earlier inquiries a couple of years into the course, how long would I have to be doing this? And I was presented with an image floating in space of a graph, and it was 27 years from in the different sections of it, but 27 years all up. During that 27 years, there's been many stages of transformation, and one of the things that has helped me through it, and the reason that I make all these videos in part initially, was because my awakening was top down. I had the enlightenment first and the purification afterwards through the process of atonement, through using the workbook lessons of the course, etc. But the reason that I'm making this video is because one of those stages is spiritualizing the ego, where you use the concepts of your spiritual discipline as a defense against further learning. And I did that for many years, probably about from 5 years into 10 years in. When I had my awakening, when I reached enlightenment in 1997, and I talk about it as if the figure is real and the avatar has an experience, and you have to forgive me for that, but there's no other way to talk about these things. But they're only relevant towards the nature of transformation. They're not relevant of themselves. I think Jesus says in the Course, if it's helpful, then so be it. Use the concepts. If it's not helpful, it doesn't matter anyway. But I realized at a certain point that I was defending myself from feeling anything further, because I'd been through a hell of a lot of transformative stuff, into the deep emotional stuff, had several profound shifts. This is after illumination, all right? And the reason that I make these videos is because hopefully anyone like me out there, and I had somebody comment on one of my earlier videos a few days ago who's had an awakening and they're trying to deal with it or understand it or ground it, whatever. Anyone out there like me who's had the awakening first, there isn't really any relevant material for a top-down awakening, for an enlightenment first and then purification after. Generally, the Course in Miracles presents you with the nature of enlightenment first. You go through the purification, and then hopefully somewhere in that process you have the experience, or after that process. And by the time you have the experience, you'll be fully aware that you're embarking upon this journey specifically to have that experience, not just happen chance. That's the reason that you're doing any of this stuff. But the spiritualizing of the ego comes along with it, because you are retraining that part of the mind, the ego part of the mind that believes that is separate from God. I am retraining that part of the mind that believes it's separate from God. But it's the same old corrupted mind that you have to start with. One of the things Jesus says in the Course is, enlightenment shows you the truth, but the means are needed to reach it. When I had my experience, direct union with God, I didn't know what had happened to me. Fundamentally, I knew I'd left the world. I didn't remember where I was. I didn't recognize eternity at first. It took a while. I experienced profound unconditional love for everyone and everything, and I still have that as my living memory. But it was as if every apple had been shaken from my tree, and I couldn't put two and two together for anything, for love or money. And all I could do for the first 3 or 4 months at least, maybe 6 months, maybe even a bit longer than that, but I couldn't stop laughing all day, every day. I would laugh for hours and hours and hours, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours at a time sometimes, and I would pray for the laughter to stop. And it wasn't I was laughing at anything. Laughter was the way that the release of my cellular denial was coming up and being dealt with as an idea of healing. And it took me a while to understand that and to allow it and to surrender to it. I didn't have a choice anyway, but it would happen when I was driving, walking down the street, doing my shopping, anything. There was, no consideration for if I was talking to people or, You know, it even happened at my grandmother's funeral. So the spiritualizing of the ego is just one of those things. So the experience shows you the truth and the means are needed to reach it. You'll have an experience, if you have an experience first and you haven't yet purified the mind, the ego, which is untrained, will grab a hold of that experience. The experience literally makes perfect sense out of everything. And you'll be super empowered as an enlightened mind, let's say for a moment, complete with all the knowledge of the spheres, all the knowledge of creation. You'll have no more questions about life, the universe, or anything like that. And as you go along from that point onwards, you're likely to have more and more confirmational style experiences in different dimensions, different realms and things, especially if you're using the workbook of A Course in Miracles, which brings you into a very specific harmonic with Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness, whatever you want to look at that as. And you'll recognize a kind of a guided nature to things. It does have individuality attributed to it because your willingness is required to undergo the shifts that the Course presents. And because the mind is untrained and undisciplined, it doesn't always recognize the advantage points for those shifts and take advantage of them. But every lesson will repeat until it's learned. It'll come around again. So one of the things that happens is with the spiritualizing of the ego and the sudden remembrance of the celestial knowledge, you can see everybody's faults. You can see everybody's sins or errors or I don't know what you want to call it. But there's a great disciplinary caveat to that. They're not other people. They're not other people. But the ego is so powerful in its grabbing hold of that experience that it absolutely becomes determined and obliterates any alternative to the narrative, determined that those are other people. They need my help. Those people need to be taught. I can teach them. I see where they're going wrong. I'm here to help. And that's very admirable, of course, you know, to have well-meaning ego. But the whole purpose of the atonement is to accept it for yourself. Physician, heal thyself. You would not see anything untoward about anyone or anything else unless it was actually a construct of your own mind, a conceptual association that you were entertaining and still projecting out, now becoming vastly aware of because your mind has become illuminated to the truth, as above, so below, and what you see outside, whether you want to accept it or not, is a reflection of your own corruption. It took me many years to be on board with the totality of that, and at a certain point my videos became more in the style of declarations rather than teaching, because I realized upon the death of my spiritualized ego, I guess, that there was no one to teach, and that everyone is giving me an opportunity to hear what I need to learn in the great celestial speed up of Dave having been shown the truth and the means being applied to reach it. Okay, so that experience that happens, your illumination, and if that person that left the comment on my video the other day is watching this video by chance, the experience that has happened to you, and I can tell that you have had a profound awakening, which is very beautiful and well done, and thank you. It's your time, and I hope you can take on board what I'm presenting to you, whether you can hear it or not, in the same way that my teacher took on board what I'm presenting now exactly, which I could not hear at the time. But you will eventually learn because you did. And I know that's outsourcing responsibility for a second there, but forgive me my errors as we forgive each other our own foibles and errors. Well-meaning ego is a particularly sticky and cunning character. And if you can remember that any judgment, and I've had people tell me, oh, it's not a judgment, I'm just trying to offer my, whatever. But all conceptually associated thought form expressed through the mouth is judgment. Every conceptual association of the mind that you think needs to be brought forth into time and space other than yes, wow, and thank you is judgment. Yes is an action of total responsibility, and wow is the response to that always, and gratitude to the person that plays the part bringing that opportunity about. And if you cannot say simply yes, wow, and thank you, and nothing more than that to any given situation, you need a fourth word, which is help. I think there's somebody out there that needs to hear something I have to say. And I know that's entirely paradoxical in the way that I'm presenting it now, because for me, this video is a personal declaration of the certainty of the singular nature of life, as above, so below. And I'm looking forward to whatever reflection it brings back. But if you're listening to this and you are not on board with a reinterpreted or a reinterpreted defense system, which is what spirituality brings, you're going to believe that I'm somebody separate from you, teaching you or trying to offer you something that perhaps you don't know. Well, there's nothing I can offer you that you don't already know, because you are one with me and we are the Christ together, not separately, not individually. That's not how it works. And that's my declaration. It's a mystery for sure. It's one of those things that, you put it out, the ripples come back, and you find yourself in this place where hopefully those ripples no longer disturb your peace of mind. And if they do, you're grateful to that anyway, because it means there's still an opportunity there for greater healing work to be accomplished, and you can be about that. I remember my teacher, Ted. I used to look at him, in class when my ego was at its peak of notoriety. I would look at him and think, oh, he's missed the mark on that one, or oh, he doesn't hear what he's saying about that. He's outsourcing the responsibility for that particular concept. And it took me quite a while to bring my finger back and go, no, he's playing a part for me, so I can learn something. But in this process of atonement, for a period, Jesus says, and this is really crucial to hear this, for me to hear this, I guess, as a declaration, but revelation, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, salvation, brings about a state of complete release from fear, doubt, lack, everything else, complete, but it's temporary. It shows you what's possible. It begins to fade. The ego begins to get in there and meddle and spiritualize itself with the power of the revelation. I'm an enlightened person, and the next thing you know, you'll be wearing beads and orange robes and doing these ones in front of crowds of people who throw flowers at you and all that sort of stuff, or pay money to come to your seminars and things like that. And but that's temporary. It wears off. Eventually, your enlightenment, which shows you something up here, gives you a moment of grace, gives you a moment of release from the anxiety of being down here where you were praying for a miracle and something happened and your mind was shown the full expose of time, space, and the meaning of life. And you find yourself eventually coming back down into the feel-proof place, because that's where your work is. That's where you're actually at. What you were shown here didn't happen. My enlightenment didn't happen in 1997. The story tells me it did, but it actually happened before time began and after time is over, outside of the Alpha and Omega. It seems to be that in 1997, something occurred in my mind to make me simply aware that the construct or the avatar of a Dave doesn't actually exist, nor the world or the universe or anything for that matter. There is only God, and thank God for that, which is unconditional love. So enlightenment shows you the truth, revelation shows you the truth, but the means are needed to reach it. And those means are simply the relinquishment of judgment, whether you think that's righteous judgment, holy judgment, well-meaning ego, it doesn't matter. Everyone I think I see is me, and in my defenselessness, my safety lies. I'm going to get those reflections. I'm going to come back down from that, or I have many years ago now, but come back down from that state of holier than thou, if you like, or trying to lift others up to where I think I am, and all that sort of thing. And it's a pretty ugly place, but it doesn't last for many years, or it can last for many years, but hopefully the ideas that are embodied in this video as an expression, as an energetic expression of the frequency of the certainty of my mind that revelation shows the truth and the means are needed to reach it, can penetrate further again in my continuing expression, further again into the darkness and the depths of the residue of time and space, in my continuing expression of the nature that of my certainty that God is a fact. And I know many of you out there are going to join me in that certainty, having had experiences or profound shifts or illuminations yourselves, will be happy to join me in the idea that God is a fact. If you are still invested in time and space, that might come as a bit of a shock. You might not warm to the idea that you don't exist. But if you're tired of time and space, I remember we did a Zoom meeting a little while back, and I've asked Tyna not to publish them all on only the ones that I think are particularly expressive, but we did one a while back, and I just out of curiosity, I said to the group, there was about 20 or so people, I said, how many of you in this group have tried to commit suicide? And probably 5/6 of the people in the group all put their hand up, me included. And not that that's necessary. You don't have to get to that point in your human sojourn to realize the efficacy of the nature of spiritual mind training. But without a deep sense of need for it, the alternative is going to be that you are willing to be of service to humanity, and you can feel that call within you to a great extent, that you're willing to put aside self-interest to become selfless in that regard. Not everybody's like that, not everybody suddenly becomes St. Francis of Assisi. Or who was the other one? Mother Teresa. I hope that's helpful, like I know it's helpful to me, everything in my mind, in my association, and the way that I can only put it is in the holographic sense. In a holographic sense, being a hologram is a sheet of cellulose film. I don't know how they do it. It's very, very clever. My sheet of cellulose film is representative and has on it the imagery and the script and the storyline, let's say. And I'm just making up a story to try and give relevance. But it has on it all the particulars of my entire soul contract. And the highlighted figure in the middle of it is this avatar, which is consciously aware of itself and its surroundings, etc., etc. Everyone else, which is why everything I'm doing, all of these videos, is simply a declaration to all the cast and crew of my association on that sheet of cellulose film. but because the light shines through a stack of 8 billion, let's just call it 8 billion anyway, it's probably a lot more. The light shines eternally through the whole stack. It's like once you reach enlightenment, once you accept atonement for yourself completely, that sheet of film is extracted from the stack. Your atonement is complete. You are no longer subject to the same laws of time and space as you were prior. That includes the two parts of enlightenment, however, the experience and the purification of the mind. One shows you the truth, the other one is needed in order to reach it or to true up to it. And that's about it. So in your own association, let your life become a living declaration of the truth of yourself. But first you have to find it. It's like that old saying, you cannot love anyone else until you learn to love yourself first. And that's entirely true. But in the spirit of enlightenment shows you the truth, but the means are needed to reach it. Be about the application of the means. That's how you will that's how you will ground your enlightenment. That's how you will ground your experience and not have it run away on you. And the last thing I would like to see for anyone is that you have an experience so profound like that and allow it to be corrupted by ego that you end up in some kind of an asylum running around. I've seen God, I've seen God. And you're a menace to society basically without any kind of use other than as a mouthpiece for the certainty of what's occurred to you. But in the greater availability of the technology that we're now looking at and applying, which we've received through the Course in Miracles, Jesus asks us with heartfelt integrity and sincerity, I need teachers. But first you have to learn to be a teacher for yourself. You have to learn to heal yourself. You know, it's like when he says, pull the beam first from your own eye, and then you'll see clearly how to pull that little splinter out of your brother's eye. All right, that's about it. And there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of ins and outs and yes and buts and all of this sort of stuff, but it's just the nuts and bolts there in the basics. And you'll find that it's virtually impossible to encompass the entirety of a narrative in one video that is going to give you a satisfactory expose on all the particulars of your transforming arts. But it's a slowly evolving process, and for some of us that's been speeded up because of necessity, and our calling has been brought forth in a much stronger way. And one of the interesting things that came forth from the comment the other day in the video was the reference to the 144,000, and yes, I'm one of them. I guess that's as good a time as any is to let that cat out of the bag. All right, I love you. Peace. And remember, judgment is judgment. It doesn't matter how well-meaning you think it is. It's simply about staying in that still place, learning to be still and master that sense of perfect inner peace, so that whether you're making videos, teaching or not teaching, the nature of judgment is supportive of your own process, not out there. As soon as the finger goes out there to someone else or something else, whoops. Thank you.